some of the conversations that I have had around high seas or seen other people have around high seas, they're like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows at the same time sometimes. So I thought, there it is. I thought, let's have a little conversation. Let's talk about box availability and TCGs and kind of how TCGs maybe struggle with box availability a little bit. And, we're opening high seas, but really, the conversation is not really about high seas. It's about all TCGs in general and how this is a challenge, a difficulty, something to surmount, right? You gotta scrub the deck to figure it out. And it's one of those conversations that can go in so many different ways. But I mean, at the heart of it, there's kind of, maybe 4 little ways things kind of look. And so one is that if the prices are too high, and I speak about for a box, cards, whatever, if the prices are too high, people will quit. If, on the flip side, prices are too low, it's a cool looking card. If prices are too low, people will quit. If there are too many boxes, people will quit. If there are too few boxes, people will quit. Now, of course, look at that Palantir. Very nice. Aeronaut, cool. Of course, the first 2 are connected to the second 2, right? If there's too many boxes, generally the prices are too low for boxes. And if there are too few boxes, then the prices get to be too high. Now, if we go back to the beginning of the list there, if the price is too high, people quit, right? Generally, that's going to be the people who just want to play the game, and they want to play the game for as little as possible. Burn Bear, right? If you're in that category and you're playing a game, and let's say the price of your game moves up in kind of it moves up. Let's say the price of your game moves up. It might move up to a point where you just decide, you know what? I can't play this game anymore. I'm going to move to something that costs a little bit less. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens for some games this summer. Look at that Gold Hunter catch. Because again, this conversation, it's not really about high seas. It's about TCGs in general. Like Flesh and Blood is not the only TCG this summer that's had kind of this big boom in expensive products, right? You can look at Final Fantasy for Magic and Pokemon and different things. This is, it's not a one thing happening totally uniquely. These foils, I could look at the foils all day. But, there are other games out there where the price is, some would say, too low. And some of these players, they might move over to those games. Star Wars Unlimited is one of those. And, I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of people kind of start picking up that game this summer. Which I do have for sale on my website because, there's a lot of boxes to get for that. On the flip side, though, right, a lot of people don't want to play Star Wars or different games like that because the prices are too low. And so people quit. And that is, oftentimes kind of high-end collectors who want to see kind of big, wild things, price things happening. Arcane Compliance. Or it's stores. Man, the amount of stores that I've talked to that just dropped Star Wars because the boxes were too low. It's, it's kind of crazy. Anyways, you have that. Then, of course, if there's too many boxes, this is what leads to there being, prices going really low. And it's funny, though, so you look at Star Wars and you're like, okay, Twilight of the Republic. There are so many boxes, right? How many stores were just like, I'm done after that? But even, it's not just that, but even there's so many boxes out there, and they are so cheap right now, you would think that, man, you could get a box of Twilight of the Republic in, I don't know, every game player's hands out there, but it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't, it can get to the point where even it's just, there's too much, it doesn't draw interest in the same way that if it was priced at a more, let's say, equilibrium place. And then again, if there's too few boxes or too few product, right, people quit. And sometimes it's not even about the price. Like I remember, for me, I quit Lorcana before I even started. I remember when it first came out, I didn't want a box. I just wanted to buy 2 starter decks so that I could just try the game, hold some of the cards, look at it. And man, after a couple of days of looking around and checking in different places and not being able to find a single starter or a single pack of anything everywhere, I was just like, whatever, there's other games out there, doesn't matter, I'll just move on. And I haven't thought about it since then. I see it on a shelf and I just move on from it because I already made that decision. So that can happen too, right? Even if you can then find it later at the right price, man, if there's just not enough product at the right time in the right place, you miss out on things and you lose things. And so it's tricky. It's very, very difficult, Murray, for a game to get everything correct all the time and kind of hit that max spread of getting the most players and keeping them engaged, keeping collectors around, keeping stores involved. Man, you know, and that's really where I love to see that kind of target box price for a game, where you keep it close to your whatever your MSRP is. So here for Flesh and Blood, right around 120, right? Old Scurv, sneaky Scurv, because that price theoretically is the price where a store can actually make some money on the product, and players aren't paying too much to get the product, but cards within the product have enough value that it's kind of fun for collectors and they'll still go for it. It's that sweet, sweet spot that is oh so difficult to get to. And, you know, they're just, when you're unable to stay in that spot, man, the unintended consequences, they hit, right? And so when there's an attitude from a game maker or somebody in the realm of it, again, this is all just kind of general, broad talking of, could be anybody. But when you have that idea of, man, let's keep things cheap so that it can work, we'll get anybody can play, it has that unintended consequence that people who run stores or create content or do different things to try and make that game grow and have places where people can play and do all that fun stuff, if it's so cheap and those people can't make any money off of it, they might not totally quit, but they might just do a little bit, right? They do a little bit on the side, but they can't fully invest in it because the return is not there, right? Flip side, if it's the opposite and you kind of push the price up or the price gets pushed up just by circumstances, then you have a bunch of other people who kind of look at it and they start to wonder, man, maybe this game, again, it's moving too expensive for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep up. And so, man, it's such a tricky thing because if the price is too low, it doesn't work. If it's too high, it doesn't work. And man, for High Seas, again, it's just been so many people so excited about how cool the set is, how fun it is to play, how, you know, wild treasure packs and different things are. But at the same time, I get I get messages or have conversations with people who just decide, you know what, I can't do Flesh and Blood anymore and I gotta be out. And that's sad for me. And I know that's obviously not the goal for, you know, people who make the game, people who run events, people who do all that stuff. I want people to stay. But it's an unintended consequence of, you know, box prices moving up. And yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It's like the angry bones just come on out. Quick post edit here. I'm cutting out what I said in this whole little section because it didn't really make any sense. I'll try and say it in a different way this time. And that is this idea, you know, you've heard before people talk about keeping old customers cost less than getting new ones. But I've just found it interesting how, kind of looking in the TCG space, that it's just, there's an interesting mix of how people actually interact with that concept or don't interact with that concept. And man, you know, I even look and reflect at myself for, you know, what maybe I could have or should have done here for high seas in trying to, man, even provide play sets or different things for my customers that would have been a pretty big cost for me to actually do that and probably lose a bunch of money on it, but then I would have maintained more customers. I don't know, I do have some common and rare play sets. I decided to just kind of go with the flow here for high seas, let the tide take me. I don't know. Anyways, what do we got here? We got a couple of packs. What is this? Man, I kind of feel like Workshop's kind of cool. But wow, this is another 7 non-foil Majestic box. No legendaries, no marvels, no wild, really wild things. None of the big Majestics hitting yet either. So we kind of need something in this last pack. And that treasure pack, again, with the price of a box moving up, it gets kind of messy. It gets kind of messy here. You need to hit big. Whoa, 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 whoa. Here we go. Last chance. Last chance. And you know, it's just, man, sometimes a shock to the system is exactly what you need to make a positive change or get something to improve for a game. Oh, but sometimes some of the consequences for those shocks, it's just, yeah, it's hard. Anytime you see somebody, or I hear the story of somebody who's just has to drop a game, whether it's Flesh and Blood or Star Wars or Altered or any of the games, you know, I've kind of done stuff with, it's always sad. So I love seeing when we can figure out ways to keep everything going. Oh, Golden Tipple. We were just talking about you in the last video. I guess this is a Tipple case. This time it's blue. Last time it was red. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one. That's a box.